Negotiations. And the question, does your leader need to be able to negotiate? Do leaders need to be able to negotiate? And of course, you can now say, no, they don't. They can delegate that. Can they? Let's look at the facts. This is a skill where there's often a huge gap between theory and practice. When do leaders need to negotiate by themselves? When can they actually delegate that? And often leaders and employees have different points of view, and that's where the negotiation begins. Of course, you can always say there are different ways how to deal with that. You could negotiate. You can simply say, I'm not going to talk about this. You can simply sit it out, don't do anything. You can simply say, I give you the point here, you can have it. Or you can simply say, I give you a direction or instruction. That's how we're going to do it. End of negotiation, in high commas negotiation here. The question is, do leaders really need to negotiate? Do leaders really need the skill to negotiate by themselves? Let's look at the fundamentals first. The first thing you have when you have a negotiation is the so-called public position. The public position is anything you like to discuss and that you are willing to discuss. So, for example, when you discuss with the client and you say, hey, we have a certain mechanic that we would actually like to deploy at your site, and then they start to negotiate their rate and the rate goes a bit up and down, then you are willing to discuss that. And you say, hey, we have this mechanic and that one, here are the CVs. And by the way, these are our approaches, our ideas, that's our project manager. And then you are able to negotiate that. Public position means it can be shared. However, very important, it goes without saying, when you have a public position, you also have a non-public position. So, for example, you probably don't want to put on display your profit margins. When you sit with a client and say, hey, we need to raise our prices by 4.9%, and 2.5% is also okay, it's still covering the cost, then you will not tell the client that you have 2.4% margin that you put on top of that. That's the non-public position. And when you do not prepare well, someone will mess it up. I give you a very simple example. That's a real-world example, by the way. With one of my clients, one of the leaders of the business joined spontaneously for a negotiation, sits there, immediately takes the lead because he's a very high-ranked professional, and says, hey, let's talk about our engine. And then the client says, oh, we'd like to do X, Y, Z. And then the leader says, yeah, technically that's not a problem at all, but let's talk about the price and delivery times. And the engineers drop dead with their table with their hands smacking on the table out of despair or anger, I don't know, because it was not technically easy. However, when one of your highest executives says, it's not a problem at all, it is a very hard bridge to go over, that you say, well, it actually is really hard, and it looks like you're starting an internal fight. And also it looks like you're not prepared at all. The public and non-public position need to be defined very, very well. And the third option as well, the third thing you have here in a negotiation are the so-called non-negotiables. I'll give you a very simple example. If someone, for example, says, yeah, we have a couple of locations and we probably want to buy your technology. It's a surveillance technology which uses facial recognition. We have a couple of locations. Please deliver to New York City, to London, to Havana in Cuba, to Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, to Peking in China, and to North Korea as well. There's at least one country on that list where you say probably we won't deliver there, and most likely we're not even allowed to deliver there. So there are non-negotiables, but these also need to be clearly defined. I give you a very simple example. In one negotiation where I was sitting there as a coach, they were negotiating and someone says, well, we usually don't deliver into that market because we only sell within the IMEA area. And then one of the executives says, but we can make things happen, compliance back and forth. Compliance isn't the one leading the business. You are now openly saying that you're violating compliance to get in a bit of cash. And that will stick with the client. And by the way, it didn't go down well with the client. The client was very hesitant and said, so you don't follow your compliance guidelines just when we say you shouldn't. That's, of course, not the partner I want to have. By the way, they didn't get the business. So you need to have the public position, the non-public position, and the non-negotiables. All of that needs to be very clearly and well defined, because essential and crucial for your negotiation success is the preparation. Spontaneous joining does not happen. No one enters the room and says, hey, here I am. You sit together and then you need to talk about how is the preparation, how is the team, and how do we want to get to a contract or an agreement, usually we say. You have preparation, you have the team, and you have the agreement, PTA. Preparation, team, agreement, PTA. So when the preparation is great and you have the right team on board, the agreement will be great. When the preparation is not so great, you will still have a team that gets some sort of agreement out of that. It just will not be that great. And when I hear from senior executives from large corporations that they tell me, well, we have international teams from 5 or 6 different departments, and due to a lack of time we have for preparation, we meet same day. The negotiation is 1 p.m. and we meet 12:45. And then you wonder you're not going to do well. Most negotiations are not lost during the negotiation. Of course, you can lose a negotiation during the negotiation, but most negotiations are lost because you didn't prepare very well. Suddenly someone says, oh, I think that's our old price. I think the new price is this one. And then suddenly, so of course, the other side, then you don't even know your own prices. Or someone says, oh, yeah, I think we have to raise our price by 2.5%. And then someone says, no, that's the minimum. You have to say 4. It's actually 4.9, and then you have to make something up how you want to get magically to 4.9%. Always sitting on a very weak position, all based on a lack of preparation. I can tell you from companies I worked for, is it GlaxoSmithKline or Microsoft, pharmaceuticals or IT or my own business, for years and years and years with my sales manager, my sales executive in my company. When we had large negotiations, we sat down for hours preparing that. And in the tech field, we sometimes sat down for 2 days with massive, massive deals and projects lasting years because we needed to have the perfect negotiation strategy. When you want to say, hey, we're going to set something up where I say this is not possible and then you say it is possible, so we do a bit of that good cop, bad cop thing. This is great and it works, but you need to prepare this. So how can you implement all these aspects? So first, professional training. You get people professionally trained. Usually you have a level 1, level 2, maybe level 3 in negotiations, but this needs to happen. It's extremely important. You have most likely an experienced negotiation coach. If not, feel free to chat with me. I can help you there, but that's not the point here right now. But feel free to contact me if you like any help here. You need to have a very professional preparation and you need to train your people professionally. If they never learned negotiation, I just give you a very simple hint of how this goes. If you, for example, are in construction, you build houses, and I knock on your door and say, hey, here's Niels, houses. I know houses. I've been in one. I've been in multiple houses. I even lived in one. So can I start here? I mean, I didn't do the whole study and uni thing, all these engineering stuff. It's just too stressful for me. I just like houses, I like to be in houses. So because houses are, just nice houses. So can I get a job here? You would say never in a million years because you're not qualified. And you're right with that. So why is it that suddenly with negotiation, people say something, training on the job, which means often nothing else. And we're not going to spend a single penny on professional training. We just let you fail and blame you afterwards and hope you will learn from that, which is the worst way of learning. It's part of learning, but not the best approach. Train your people professionally. They need a very clear structure. They need a very clear process how to negotiate. And very important, no tricks. Very often I see trainers saying, do you know this trick and this works? When you interrupt people, for example, you can actually mess up their, yeah, I know this works. It works. However, it only works short term. When you, for example, say, hey, I'm Walmart, and when you want to sell paper on my racks, in my shelves in Walmart locations, I have 1 billion suppliers for paper. If you don't like it, someone else will take it. And of course, then you can be rude and nasty and use any kind of tricks. But that is not the common case. Often you have a limited number of suppliers. Prices go up. And when you use tricks, you might win once, but they will realize you used a trick. And then they will say, look, we just took a note that you used this trick. You won for now, but see you back again next year. And I don't think it's 4.9% then. It's 14.9% then. And that's our trick here. And then the whole relationship you have goes downhill. No tricks. Tricks work. But that's not how to professionally lead a negotiation. It's very important. The goal is not to win a negotiation, as strong as this may sound for many of you. When you say, I want to win the negotiation, it means the other side loses the negotiation. And when people lose the negotiation, they realize that. And when people lose negotiations frequently, they will sooner or later walk away. One of my clients, they work in a very specialized technical field and they look for very specialized cables. And one of their suppliers now said, look, we walked away from a couple of negotiations and it's not really fun for us. You have very high demands. You don't pay very well and you always delay your payments. You don't agree to our payment terms. And when we have special payment terms, you don't stick to them. So we decided to walk away from special cable production. We only do standard cables. That's a good product. Anyone needs it. It's built into absolutely any device in the world. And we just deliver that and have good project margins. and good profit margins as well. So good luck finding a new supplier, especially when these suppliers need certifications. It can take up to 2 years to find a new supplier. So very important is when you want to win negotiations, you will lose in the long run. Negotiation means we find a solution where both sides are happy to agree at the end, or at least both sides find it acceptable to agree. That is the goal. We don't want to win. When you sometimes win, cool. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But the vast majority of negotiations are a win-win situation, or at least a situation which ends acceptably for both sides. We want to have a solution with which both sides can live. So wrapping all this together, negotiation always happens. No matter if it's a classic negotiation situation with an Outlook invite, if it's a chat about salaries, for example, a salary negotiation, or just trying to get your project budget up or down, depending on what you want to do. That's also a negotiation. Negotiations happen all day long, and that means leaders must be able to negotiate. They need to do it by themselves. They cannot just delegate it. And when any leader thinks, because I'm an executive, I can simply decide, and when I decide that is the law, and you think when you think that's a negotiation won, or when you think that is a common ground or a win-win situation, it's not. When you think you can simply decide and that's your way of negotiating, then you will lose in the long run. Because as we all know, we can only win together in the long run. And I wish you all the best doing so. And when you now say, ooh, that's tough, yeah, happy to chat with you if you have any kind of question or open aspects you'd like to chat about. nb@nb-networks.com. You find the email address in the show notes of this podcast. Feel free to contact me. In the show notes of this podcast, you find my email address. Feel free to chat with me there. Send me an email. If you have something very specific, you need a seminar, a training, a coaching, we can do that as well. If you just like to chat about questions you have, we can do so either. So feel free to contact me anytime, anywhere. Also, I will put my LinkedIn in the show notes of this podcast. Feel free to contact me there as well. And of course, you also find my website there, nb-networks.biz. On this website, you also find the transcript of this podcast, so you can, of course, read everything you want there. What I also add is we have live sessions. So please, step number 2, join our leadership letter. When you go to expert.nb-networks.com, feel free to join there. Feel free to join the email list. As soon as you join the email list, you only get one email every Wednesday morning. It's 100% content, ad-free guarantee. And what you get is full access to all the articles. In total, meanwhile, more than 400 over the years, to all kinds of leadership aspects. And by the way, all of them with no paywall. Second thing, you get access to all the podcasts, again with no paywall, all free. And the third thing is you get free access to the live sessions we have. And we only communicate the live sessions via these means. There's always the date and the link to join the live sessions straight in that email. So feel free to join here as well. The third aspect, however, is the most important one. Apply what you learned in this podcast, because only when you apply what you learned, you will see the positive change that you obviously want to see in your organization, in your life, and especially in your negotiations. If you need any kind of help, feel free to contact me. I'm available 24/7 and I answer any message I receive within 24 hours or less. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And at the end of this podcast, there's only one thing left for me to say. Thank you very much for your time.